77%. It also shows the small page on your right side. Yeah, it's getting bigger, 88%, but still not full screen. I believe there is one for on the top, besides the percentage. The right
one? I can't even see it in full screen here. This is 10 maybe.
The second right button, it looks like full screen button there. I'm not sure. No, the next one. Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, it's still.
Oh, Terry, that's good enough. I think it's time we should start.
Yeah. Like this. Okay. Welcome, everybody. If you didn't want to go to the ANIMA working group meeting, then you're in the wrong place, because this is it. These are the chair slides. So let's see, everything is in order, I hope. Right, let me get started with the IETF Note well. Hope you're all aware of that. I'll let that linger on for a second. And we don't need to repeat all of it. So Joanna is going to take the notes. I'm not sure if we have a Jabber scribe, so anybody who can get on Jabber and answer questions there, if somebody only has access to Jabber, would be highly welcome. Slides and streams, obviously everybody who's on it here knows it, so no problem. So let me already go to our work. So what we have is primarily the big cluster of the Charter Round 1 documents on their way out, something like 600 pages. There has been no change in the main documents since then, so they've been lingering, waiting for RFC editor to get to them. Michael is going to give a short update on that as one of the slots. And I think the only stuff that was added since last time I was going through all the document is the GRASP AP draft, and that joined the RFC editor queue after the last IETF. And so we're in before getting towards Auth 48. So then we have right now 5 more working group drafts. We've got the ASA guidelines, which was adopted directly before IETF 109. I gave the Shepard review, but we didn't have a slot at 109. So that slot with the update is now. Here we've got the Brewski asynchronous enrollment, which the authors updated since 109. We've got the constraint join proxy, which was adopted after IETF 109. We've got the constraint voucher that was updated, and graph distribution. So on all the 5 working group documents, we have had activities and are reporting on this from the authors, so that's great. And that seems to also have resulted in most everybody contributing, focusing on this, because on the non-working group drafts, there was in the last period a little activity. We had some discussion about thinking about ANIMA to make it L2 friendly and resilience. We're not going to have something about this now. I was thinking about talking about it, but I think we're also running out of time for the 1 hour. And the only other update on non-working group draft is the Jose voucher from Michael. And then there is a long list of non-working group drafts, which I hope we'll be able to revive once the authors of the working group drafts, I think, have more cycles left for them. So logistics for the Brewski-related work in Anima, as well as also adjacent drafts and other working groups, there is a design team, which is open, of course, to everybody interested in it. And that happens weekly. Michael sent out the logistics to the mailing list to remind people. That seems to be fairly active. Unfortunately, for California time, it's not very friendly, but most folks seem to be from Europe anyhow. So if you're interested in Brewski and wanted to help further with that area as well, maybe that's a good way to touch base with the active community there. Tooling reminder, we've got a Git where if you are interested in using GitHub to manage your working group or non-working group document or software related to Anima, you're more than welcome to use that GitHub. So that slide hasn't changed. So just in case you are joining new to the effort, that information here, just pick it up from these slides. And so finally, we get to the agenda. I think the next one up is Michael with any more details to the C25 cluster. Do you want to simply go to the mic, Michael? And where is he? Michael Richardson.
Do you want me to project the slides?
Sure, why not? Yep. So what do I need to do now?
You need to endorse my projection request by clicking on it.
Okay, can you send it again? Can you click again?
No, I'm still there. You need to scroll up.
I was clicking on it. There was something popping up, but oh darn! This was working in the past. The screen has been shared. Okay.
Okay, so all of these documents are currently in the RFC editor queue. This is not a mistake. The first one on the left, GRASP, has been there since 2017. So we're coming up on its 4th anniversary, and I hope we won't celebrate that. And then this document here entered the this cluster because it references the other documents in January after we did our working group last call and the IESG reviewed it, etc. This was the last document to arrive in the November, and it kind of that released the rest of the RFC editor to work on it. And we didn't see any actual progress until I guess about 3 weeks ago. We got the authors got a number of clarification questions on things, and my understanding is there. So that changed. We were in ref mode here. Just this word there because this document points to this document, which points to this document, which points to this document. So they all have references to each other, which you can see actually here, and that's why they're all going as a group. And so they changed to RFC editor with the *R about 2 weeks ago, and I'm anticipating an Auth 48 any day now. Torlis said that we were looking at 4 weeks maybe, and that's about it.
Right, yeah, so I was in gather.town going to the RFC editor desk, so it's actually a very nice tool, especially for all these procedural things, and the nice RFC editors were looking up their internal queues and showing me the stats. And so what they were willing to say publicly is that the authors should receive Auth 48 notification within a month. Any questions on that?
There is this question. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all those draft authors for your patient and for your work hard for so long time. We actually much behave our very primary schedule, but finally we are here and we are the last mile to complete all those and publish them. So the others, please, take the last step will and do the job good. Thank you. Thank you all.
All right. Okay, so who's going to present on the constraint voucher status? Can somebody please step up to the microphone?
I'll just put it on my screen, just a second. Sorry, it's not. Sorry, it's just a second. I have to save the PDF again.
Michael, anything wrong? I have
Yeah,
granted
sorry.
you.
I just kept opening
Okay.
the wrong
It's up.
PDF. I just kept opening the wrong PDF, and I was like, no, wait, that's the wrong PDF. Okay, so constraint document. We've been working on this since since last IETF. So we had the Brewski design team meetings where we primarily worked through this with GitHub. To remind anyone who is unfamiliar with this, this is essentially a version of Brewski that Brewski uses EST, that's RFC 807030, HTTP, and TLS. And this replaces a bunch of things. So EST becomes CoAP EST, HTTP becomes CoAP, and TLS mostly becomes DTLS. So what have we changed in the 10th version? First of all, we have excised all of the CMS bits. So when we started this work, there was a belief that we wanted to have CMS signed CBOR. I didn't understand that request because I thought that if you wanted to go to CBOR, then why would you want CMS? And so we've come to realize that the people that wanted it realized that they don't want it. And we have removed all those pieces of it. We had done an early allocation of a content type OID for CMS. After, I think that part of the effort here was very useful, that it allowed some people to do some interop testing and then realized that they didn't really want to do this. And so we've returned that content type OID. We've not to the IANA. We had done a compressed version of the request audit log, but that doesn't make any sense because that part is on the part between the registrar and the MASA, and that part remains HTTP. And so it makes no sense to make it any shorter or do anything different. Almost every page was rewritten in some fashion or not, so that you'll see that there's diffs on almost every page if you look at 09 to 010. So there's a lot of English changes, a lot of wording changes there. We removed the mandatory discovery by the pledge. It's still required that the register be willing to answer that discovery, but we essentially said that if we don't want to do that round trip because saving, 6 or 7 bytes is not that important, then don't bother doing that. We have some text, and this is perhaps requires a little bit of thought and review, but essentially, if it turns out that the when you go and enroll, if it turns out that the key that signs your new entity is in fact your certificate authority, and that's the thing that was in the voucher, then you already have the new CA key, and you don't need to retrieve it again. So that saves another round trip there. And in particular, there was concern that the CA keys could be large, and that may require that we use COAP block mode and be able to support that in all pledges. And if you do this, then maybe the answer is you don't need to support it. And so there's some code that potentially goes away. We have a lot of text about how the certificate is pinned, how the raw public key is pinned. And finally, we clarify that the Brewski massive protocol is still HTTP. One issue for 11 is that, well, so this names in the Yang were kind of long and descriptive that we added. And one of the reasons why it seemed reasonable to do this was because they all get translated into an integer via the core conf protocol. And so they never appear on the wire, so they might as well be as long as you like. So proximity register SHA-256 of subject public key info is annoyingly long. In particular, it doesn't fit into our tables. So for that reason alone, we think we should change it, because it means it's very hard to present and talk about the thing if it doesn't fit, into what you're going on. And so we would really like to shorten it in some way, and I don't know what the right set of things to probably omit is. Probably it should be consistent with, if you're going to shorten subject public key info, then we probably should shorten the other one as well and make it clear what it is we're doing. So it could be, PKI, could be something else like this, and we could just need to figure that out. And there's possibly in 011, there were possibly a couple more cases. You'll recall last summer we changed Brewski such that we no longer put it under the EST well-known, but rather under the new Brewski well-known, and it's possible that we still have a couple of errors there in the document. Issues that's underway. This is what the GitHub looks like now. We have a number of issues. We have 3 open pull requests. And we have, I think it's 11 issues open there. Several of them have text already. Some of them are already essentially ready to be closed. We just need to be sure that we've done all the changes that we expected to do. Your help would be welcome here in reviewing these issues there. So some of the dependent documents that we are is in this IETF core SID. This is the core conf mechanism and the core Yang CBOR. So these are now in working group last call in the core working group, and have had their Shepherd write-ups, and I will advance to the ISG, I believe, very soon. We expect to have design team meetings next week, Thursday, and into April. And I expect by the end of 6 meetings, we'll have closed all the issues and published a document. So that document will be ready for working group last call. We'd like to start getting some of the cross-area review done now, so that we can, if we get issues from reviewers, that we can address them while we kind of have it all in our head. And I've asked to get some of the people who reviewed Brewski to review this document, Christian Wiedema and Yahi and Russ Housley, and I hope some of them will be willing to review the document. But of course, reviews from anyone will be welcome. And that's it. And that's just some extra slides if you have questions.
Thanks a lot. Any questions? Yeah, Rob, go ahead.
So just picking up on your cross-area review, have you already taken care of those reviews that you're needing, or is there anything that you need me to do to try and help with that?
I can't. The chairs need to push the button for asking for reviews, or you can do that. And I've suggested to the other people that they can go to they can add it as a review wish so that they get assigned. But I can't do that. So yeah, that's it. I think that whatever other requests, I mean, I said for Brewski, we got an IoT Directorate review, a security review, and a GenArt review. And those were the three big reviews a year and a half ago. Maybe it's 2 years ago. I would love to have the same people come and look at the constrained version, because they have they already had criticisms and that were fixed, and so it would be good to know if they what they think here.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave it to the chairs.
Okay, sure. Anybody here who want to step forward and take it on him to review the document, more than welcome. I'll certainly we'll find time for it next month. But yeah, please start it on the thread and on the mailing list, and then the chairs will be happy to help find more review. Okay, so we've got a problem with one of the presenters here, Xun Xiao, joining the session. It seems. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to figure that out, but I think at this point in time we don't have a presenter for slot number 4, unless somebody wants to step to the mic and tell me otherwise.
Yes, Terence. I'm one of the authors. I would like to make the very last limit presentation. I'm not sure I really, because that's him, Xun Xiao, made the slides. So I will say.
Well, come on, present it to somebody else's slides, one of the standard challenges.
Yeah, that's a very challenge. But I'm not sure I can see my screen.
It says a screen share is being started. If you just have problems with the screen share, I can certainly help with that.
I think I can. Yes. How about now?
Yep.
Okay.
Now there's a screen share.
So yeah, because I'm one of the co-authors, so I do have the right, and I have to do this work if nobody stands up. What we made is the only one version from 01 version to 02 version from last meeting, and this draft is really about to distribute information along the ASAs and also along the different AN components. So we focus on how to distribute information along the different agents. This draft was adopted as a working group document in last year, February. Since then, we collect all the comments in the mailing list and including that in the open issues. And by now, we hope we already address most of them. We add more reference to the, one of the major change from 0.0 version to 0.1 version actually made before last meeting is we integrate the draft commentary grasp bucket into this working group draft. That's make it possible to distribute information that cannot be transferred at one message. And in this update, before this meeting, we made one focus on the addressing the comments about the use case. We add more reference to the use case in the introduction section. We hopefully better explanation of the required context of the connected in-car case. We also add the consideration use case example of firmware update. We also consider to move in the examples from appendix into the core text. And we also focus on the complete the reversed V2X use case with reference to the 5TA white paper at the real-time HD maps and in-car information infotainment. Also, the software update be added, and we add a new use case: distributed computing applications information. And we are still open to add more use cases if anybody makes that request in near future. And basically that's it. The update we consider the further reverse the current text. We will focus on the other sets of comments to prepare the next O3 version, and we hope we can be ready for the last call, because I mean, before becoming the working group document, we already baked this document for a long while, giving the RAC, the working group, giving the priority. So hopefully we can be ready and stable for next meeting. Thanks, that's all. Any questions, comments?
Thank you very much, Sheng. I was just looking up the history, and yeah, as a reminder, the document has been because of primarily, our focus on the first round of the charter, been carried on for a very long time as a non-working group document before we, as a working group, felt that with the rechartering everything, we could have taken up as a working group document. But I think during those years, it has matured significantly. And so even though it's a working group document only for a short period of time, I very much hope that we can also try to, start thinking about its exit strategy to IESG during this year. And so I reviewed the changes, so and obviously with the feedback from the Shepherd review that I gave, I'm quite happy with it. So would hope that maybe Sheng, towards the next IETF in summer, we could start thinking about bringing it up for last call. So maybe the co-authors can think about if they feel there's anything left toward that.
Okay, thank you. So I stop sharing. You can move on.
All right. Would somebody in possession of Brewski AE slides please step up to the microphone? I think that's the next slot.
Yes, that's probably me. Yes. So I hope I'm grabbing the right screen. Yes. All right. So I would like you can see the screen. Okay. I would like to give an update on Brewski AE. That was the last version of the draft was provided in January. And you can see here the list of authors, and one author has been added to the list, who is Thomas Werner, who also participates in the meeting today. So just to recall what the draft is about. So the draft as such is enhancing the Brewski model with some further use cases. So one use case relates to limited on-site PKI functionality, and another use case reverses the role of the pledge actually to be a client, to be a server rather than a client. So that means that the pledge is being asked for certain information that he should be provided to the registrar. So we used to call that pull and push, but there is some discussion on the terminology that comes up later. So the draft addresses those two use cases by basically relying on signed objects, or we call it authenticated self-contained objects, which utilize the signature from either on the pledge side using the IETF ID or from the infrastructure side, so the registrar side. So that is just a short wrap-up about what is a draft about. So what has been changed from version 00 to 01? So we updated some of the scope sections and at the beginning to motivate or to provide a better motivation for the use case 2, in which the pledge itself acts as a server. So that, as I said, reverses the model that Brewski right now is working on. We had some rework specifically in the use case 2 regarding the push, what we call the push model. Because in the last IETF meeting and also in the design team, we discussed about the trust relationship between the device or the agent that is basically onboarding the pledge. And in the first round, we discussed about the usage of TLS to protect the communication between the pledge and the pledge agent. That has been fed into the draft, and we had further discussion on the design team afterwards, which showed that the approach that or how TLS was used, basically utilizing pre-shared key, which is, for instance, provided to the agent by using a QR code, is not the optimal approach here, and that would also closely relate, for instance, to DPP. So there is a proposal to change the current TLS approach, which comes on later on the slides. So we also have a first description of the exchanged objects included in the drafts, which needs more work. They basically concentrate on an example of object types that are used on the different endpoints in the call flow. We would like to provide this as example basically in the draft to be able to come up with an implementation, but to leave it open if other object types are being supported or not. Then we had some further clarification and discovery options for the enrollment endpoints, which are on the domain registrar. So we initially thought we could follow a similar approach like for constraint voucher, for instance, but that is not possible for the HTTP. So we decided to not provide the discovery mechanism for the registrar and basically assume that the registrar has the functionality to either serve the client or the pledge or not. And if it's not possible to serve it, then he would issue an error message. Based on that, we also updated the illustrative example that was included. Also, thanks to Michael for taking over the /Brewski well-known in the main document.
which allows specifically for use case 1 to utilize also other protocols and for enrollment and not mixing up the handling with the certificate handling. And we also started with security consideration section and updated some of the references. And as I said, Thomas is one of the new co-authors. So regarding the trust establishment that I named before, so the goal at the the goal as such is to have a trust establishment between the pledge and the registrar without ideally not having a binding to the underlying TLS connection. So that trust relationship is being established based on authenticated self-contained objects, so the signed objects we talked about. We have proposed some method to provide a discovery of the pledge by the pledge agent using MDNS, and then once the pledge agent can be contacted on the respective endpoints, we would follow, we propose in the 01 version the trust establishment based on the TLS connection. So the assumption was that we have a QR code available with pledge specific information and some random information to be able to have some kind of proof of proximity, so that the pledge agent who bootstrap or who would onboard the pledge was in physical proximity to the pledge, so he was able to scan basically the QR code. And the discussion in the design team showed that if we would utilize this approach, that is not the favorite approach because different reasons. So TLS PSK was one reason, and then the QR code that essentially has the pre-shared keys and further information included there. So the alternatives we currently discuss is not using TLS between the pledge and the pledge agent. So what is the reason for going away with TLS? So the reason for introducing it in the first place was not to provide authentication between the pledge and the pledge agent, but it was rather intended as a DOS protection, denial of service protection. So this is probably only necessary for the registrar endpoint because the pledge itself in the push case may reside on a separate network. So, so we decided that, or we proposed in the design team that the registrar certificate is provided by the pledge agent to the pledge and included by the pledge in the voucher request. So the pledge agent would simply forward that. So that would be included. Sorry, that would be included as a new leaf, which could be something like agent provided register cert. So that information is then forwarded via the pledge agent to the registrar, and the registrar can verify on one hand if he is the registrar responsible for the onboarding on one hand, and on the other hand if the pledge is the right pledge to be onboarded based on the information that is in the IETF ID contained, like the serial number, for instance. So that there are the checks that can be done on the registrar side. And the MASA can also verify the certificate which is contained in the voucher from the registrar. So again, it's not a proximity register cert. It would be something like an agent-provided register. Based on that, the MASA could decide which of the current voucher assertion would be used for that, like verified or locked, or we could also define a new assertion there. So. Let me jump to the backup because I have a call flow there that basically depicts the general approach here. So I stretched the Brewski architecture up there. So what you can see here is a pledge agent that connects to the pledge, and then there are some exchanges here. Those are just examples. So we just used the voucher request and the voucher the voucher request trigger and didn't display the certification request trigger here. So a service technician, for instance, would take the pledge agent, connect to the pledge, fetch the information like the voucher request and obviously also the certification request, and then disconnects from there. If he's in a building, he might be in a cellar, and then steps up, connects to the network that hosts the domain registrar and provides the information to the domain registrar. And then the normal Brewski run can happen here. And once he gets the information about the voucher and also about the certificate, he can step back to the seller, connect to the pledge again, and then basically provide that information. So I put this drawing back up because I think it's easier to understand than just the written proposal here. So what do we lose when we go forward with that approach is the proximity to the registrar via the mutual authenticated TLS. So in comparison to the original Brewski document and the assertion in the voucher. So we can't provide something like a register, a proximity register certificate
Stefan?
there. Yep.
Just the scroll bar on your slide deck makes me a little bit worried about our time planning. So if you can speed up a little bit, that would be appreciated.
Okay. So what do we lose means the proximity to the registrar, and what do we gain is the flexibility in the bootstrapping approach by keeping the number of the round trips that we have in Brewski. The question would be, are there any thoughts about that approach, and specifically about not utilizing TLS between the initial connection between the agent and the pledge? This is probably something for the sake of time that we can discuss on the mailing list then. The trust establishment between the pledge agent and the registrar is currently expected to be done using an LFID. So the pledge agent is already known to the registrar and has an LFID that he can use to authenticate towards the registrar. That has the advantage that the endpoints that already exist based on Brewski on the registrar can be reused, and the registrar itself may distinguish between a pledge onboarding or a pledge agent onboarding based on the fact that he's either using an LFID or an IDFID. Okay, so this, I can jump over that quickly. This is the first proposal for object types for the different endpoints on the pledge agent that are used to communicate or to get the voucher requests, the voucher response objects, and also the certification request and the certificate itself onto the pledge. Most of them you see is to be discussed, so we need some further discussion on the object types there. I just wanted to put that here as information, how it could look like. But we would like to open the discussion there and also keep the possibility to utilize other encodings. Then some terminology discussion. We currently have, we currently call that object here in the middle the pledge agent. But essentially what it does is it has a closer relationship to the domain registrar, and it actually acts in certain ways as an agent for the registrar. So the proposal is to go away from pledge agent and rename it to registrar agent. Are there, just as a question to the room, if there is any thoughts about the renaming? Okay, we can also discuss that via the, I think that's a low-hanging fruit, and we can put that to the mailing list. We have a further terminology discussion that relates to pull and push. We had some discussion on the mailing list and also on the design team, and Michael suggested that we have some kind of renaming or a better naming to not confuse people with those terms here. So alternatives may be client server mode for the pledge, or pledge initiated or agent initiated bootstrapping. So those could be alternatives to pull and push. Also, if there are any thoughts, we can discuss it on the mailing list. Okay. So then we had some discussion and open issues from the last IETF meeting. One was the discovery of enrollment options on the registrar. We removed that get well known and basically assumed that the pledge is the one that is a constraint device and implements only one approach for the bootstrapping. and onboarding, and the registrar is a more flexible component, and either it supports the onboarding method proposed by the pledge or it doesn't support it. And yeah, so we don't see really the value of the discovery here. So we close that one. So pledge agent authentication authorization, there's an ongoing discussion. The current status, as I said, relying on an ELF ID for that. And the necessity of providing the proximity registrar certificate has been addressed so far. That has to be taken into the draft, obviously. But the approach is to have something like an agent-provided certificate, which can then be verified by the registrar. Last but not least, we had the discussion on consideration of different transport options in the addressing scheme. And currently, we still assume to follow the Brewski approach using HTTP, but it could be enhanced in the future to also address co-op or over DTLS or also OSCO. Next steps, we obviously need some further refinement of the pledge server, so the push approach in the design team, addressing further open issues and questions. One relates to, is still the discussion of the trust relationships. Another one is alignment of object types that we have and that we would like to reflect in the draft. Yeah, and then there is also some clarification if there are implementation options that would utilize different encoding schemes, which should be done preferably in additional documents and not all in one document to be able to have a better clustering of the functionality. So then we have some terminology clarifications and further open issues that are stated throughout the draft. So we always have something like to be discussed in the draft and that needs to be addressed. Okay, so far for a rush through the document.
Okay, yeah, sorry, always good content, but we're running out of time. Can we, I think we need to take questions to the list about this because of where we are in time. Yeah, can we get the constraint join proxy, please? And maybe can this be done in something like 5 to 6 minutes? And we can't hear you yet, except we can, yeah, lip reading is problematic.
So I'm waiting for you to agree to my, oh, I have to push the other button, sorry. Constrained. Okay, the short and sweet of this is that we adopted in November. There we go. It proposes the replacement of a circuit proxy. It does this with DTLS. And there's some, it does it in a stateless way by essentially inserting some content into a TLS extension so that you can know where to return the packets when they get back to the join proxy. And the join proxy doesn't have to actually keep any state, which allows it to be very cheap and resilient to denial of service attacks. We have some better explanation of it. And now there's a discovery part of this as well. So the joint proxy can both announce itself and be discovered there. It's pretty much haven't done really anything since the last IETF. There are no new issues left. It's pretty much ready for last call. Anyone read this document lately?
Yeah, I was planning to read it soon.
Thanks, Esco.
Right. One question with respect to this Ewing COA. That's a protocol that's owned by another working group. So is there some, sorry, I'm probably chair should know some defined process by which kind of the way that the protocol is used or so.
We're not changing COAP in any way. In fact, if anything, the review we want is from the TLS working group, probably, because we are using a TLS component to do the. Am I right? Did I get that wrong? No, we're using COAP stateless. Excuse me, to get the response back. No, we're not. We can't be. That's the other protocol. Excuse me. I was right. It's a TLS. It's a TLS thing. So we have another document that is using stateless, but that's not in this working group. So the state part goes into a TLS extension, and for anything we need that review for that piece.
Okay, so you're saying that core has no right, nor should it have any quarrels with what you're doing, so we shouldn't care about them, but we should try to find the TLS review when it gets closer to the end.
Yeah, no, it's now. Now is the time to get that review as we go to a working group last call.
Is that something you think would be helpful if we as chairs ask for it, or?
Yes. Ask for a sector review with emphasis on TLS.
Right. Okay. Next one, Laurent, I think you're up.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, Torres, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good, thanks. Can you see what I'm showing?
Yes, for now. Yeah, don't share your full screen. Yeah. Okay, here you go.
Okay, good. So
yeah, good.
This is an update on the guidelines for autonomic service agents. So I'm presenting on behalf of the co-authors, Brian, Sheng, and Pierre. So this document has been adopted as working group document end of last year, November. And just following that, we got document shepherd review from Torles. And the only diff that you could see from the individual ID that was before that is just to fix some update of references. So we got a detailed review from Trellis. Thanks for that. So I will not go necessarily through all the sections that Trellis commented on, but just raising a few important points. So we have a lot of work still on the suggestion for clarification, editorial improvement of the draft, but there are a couple of other aspects related to updates, for instance, in section 2 with allowing a more diverse approach for the Bayesian of ASA. We have something that is a bit too constraining right now. Section 3, Torres introduced a question related to allowing different security bootstrapping approaches too. So I think this is also will be a discussion that we will have for the next update. And also some updates on, we have a text talking about policy and intent, and at the time of, Chapter 1 of ANIMA, this was a bit ruled out. So it's a bit old text. We need to update that also to newer references. Some aspect about security consideration in other sections. And on the design of grasp, suggestion for improvement on a different set of aspects related to what is described there to be a bit more fluid in the description. We have some things to fix also in the life cycle. Some terminology will probably be introduced. And also disambiguate, we have the use of term objectives several places in the draft. So to disambiguate if it's we'll say formal grasp objective as in the protocol, or if it's English term of objectives. So we will have to find a way to differentiate that. We have also a section on coordination with traditional management functions, section 8, where we will need also to make some improvements. Section 9, robustness. Some further inputs from Torles that will be useful for the revision. and some stuff to improve also in security considerations, especially towards authorization, and a few fixes. It's an informational document, and we have some references that appear in the normative part, so we will have to improve that. So this is based on a review from Thorless, very useful, and this is an ongoing revision that we have. In the meantime, also Brian, co-author of this draft, made a kind of experiment, a proof of concept about the ASI lifecycle. And so he created a few functionality and run that in his implementation of different ANIMA technologies. And its main conclusion on the needed support, or I would say new features needed to have a good support for the ASA lifecycle, is essentially that a kind of single new feature will be needed. It's essentially working in the main loop of the ASA, and it's a kind of, let's say, watchdog check run type of functionality that informs the ASA either to be able to continue if the check of this function is positive, or rather to exit gracefully in case it is returned false. So this is, to the word of Brian, just a simple proof of concept, but it was useful to, let's say, do some experiment based on the content that we have in this draft with a bit of real code. And this is available, I mean, the report from Brian is available on the mailing list archive. So our plans for the next version, of course, to address the pending review comments that we have. And we, of course, welcome additional feedback and reviews on the draft. The document was already quite stable, technically speaking, before the working group adoption, but we welcome additional reviews and feedback. We will refine the content. There are a few technical changes that we need to put together. And also our goal with this new version is in this document is to put good foundations for the future work in ANIMA around what we had in previous meetings called ASA ecosystem. So looking to the use cases and applications, and maybe also detailing some examples of different autonomic functions and autonomic service agents. And also to really highlight some consideration concerning the design, implementation, and deployment of such software packages. The target that we have for such an update is by the end of this month. And that's it for the update on this document.
All right, thank you very much. Michael, I think we're running out of time a little bit. So do you want to say something, or do you have questions?
Really quick.
Yep. Go.
Go. I'm waiting for it to let me project. Maybe it won't. You need to push the button. Anyway, so Anima Jose voucher. I don't have a projection permission yet. But anyway, so we posted this document, and it's about Jose signed Jason, and there's examples, there's explanation of to why. Thank you for the button. There we go. And this is an example of what it looks like. A little bit weird is that we've decided to go with the JWS compact serialization. So that's the kind that actually there's more libraries that deals with, but it does mean that we are sending base64 encoded URL encoded, not the regular kind, within the HTTPS, which is a bit weird because we don't need to encode it, but we are. And that's about it. It's very short and sweet. It's like 9 pages to the examples. So I think that it fits fairly well into the working group. There is desire to use this in, I believe, the OPC UA protocol and their adoption of Brewski, and it's already been implemented by Siemens. So it would be great to have this as a working group document. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Given how this is ops, I dare to ask the question, where is the user in the device that needs this?
The user is the OPC UA, which is an industrial IoT foundation that's existed since the 90s. And they have indicated that they are interested in adopting Brewski, but that they don't want to do CMS. And if we had time, maybe Thomas could talk more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to have these type of explanations in documents. I didn't have the time to read up on the details, so if that detail isn't there, so
in the document, that's fine. We can get some clear statements as to who's doing it there.
Right.
Yeah.
And is that kind of the only thing in terms of it looks to me kind of I mean, what is that the only dependence? I mean, so they plug it into some other workflow, right? Because just having this other,
Brewski.
you know,
they plug it into Brewski.
So the whole workflow out of existing IETF drafts, but then for some reason they don't like CMS.
Correct. That would involve them putting libraries and code into their devices that they currently don't use, and they already are using JWS in their code. That's my understanding.
At some point in time, it would be a great topic for IoT ops to figure out how to support or not support the variable preferences for, yeah. I'm just curious.
The registrars have to support, and the MASA have to potentially have to support multiple things, but they're not constrained at all in that they're appliances, and the devices in the factory floor are not that constrained, but they don't want code there. They don't need to have, want to maintain.
So it's about lightweight.
It's lightweight. It's not that constrained, but it is lightweight. It is plugged in Ethernet. They are not doing onboarding of the networking. They are doing onboarding to the application server.
Okay, so Jose claims itself to be more lightweight on the pledge.
It's just code. It's just a question of what code, and you can implement it trivially in Java, whereas CMS is a little bit painful to do in Java, and you can do Jose in PHP if you want.
Okay, interesting. Okay. All right, and I think that's a wrap. Sorry for staying over 2 minutes. Let's take all the open questions to the list, and I'm also on gather.town if you have any more questions. So please feel free to reach out there as well. And see you next time, and we'll see whether that's cyberspace or San Francisco space.